I'm Emily, the content manager from GraphCMS, and today we're talking with Bruno from AE Studio about successfully migrating from a legacy CMS to a headless one. AE Studio is one of our partner agencies here at GraphCMS, and Bruno, maybe you want to give a little intro about what you do over there?
Yeah, so I'm a developer at AE Studio. I basically work with many different clients in many different projects. I worked with BioCentury. They had this big system. They are in the business for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to work with them and migrate their system to a headless CMS.
Awesome. And so if you're cool with it, we'll just go ahead and dive into our topic.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so one of the things we talk about a lot here at GraphCMS and just kind of being in the headless space is when is it time to move from a monolithic architecture to a more modern one? And do you see these similar conversations going on at AE Studio as well?
Yes. When you mention a monolithic system, the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, this system was built many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we do work with some clients that have like old systems, and basically nowadays what we use is we have at least one application for the front end where it's user facing,
Mm-hmm.
and another separate project for the back end. So we have at least two different projects, the front end and back end. So for old clients, old systems, we have an approach where we can slowly migrate from their old monolithic system to a new one,
Mm-hmm.
using separate repositories.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, that's a very common setup, I think, now, just kind of decoupling the front end to the back end so that you can really choose the systems that work best for your use case. So what are some of the things that you consider when clients come to you saying that they want to modernize their existing tech stacks for existing projects?
Yeah, so it depends on how much they are willing to spend, because
that's always the case, right?
Yeah. Well, so the issue is if the project's too big, if they spent many, many years on a project and they want to modernize, well, maybe to rebuild the entire system, it's going to cost a lot. So maybe they are willing to do that. That could be the case. But there are many cases where they don't really know what's happening. They know the system is old, but they don't know. Maybe they're not in touch with technology. So one of the things that we do in those cases is we propose a different approach. So we have an approach where we can replace their old system by replacing small features in their application. So if they have a login screen, we can replace their old monolithic login screen using a separate module, separate from their existing code, and just create a new module for the login and replace their login. So this way we can slowly modernize their applications.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, is, it's a good way to keep the project moving, to keep the project still being able to be used by the users, but also slowly be able to modernize, so you kind of get that incremental change rather than all of a sudden having to bam a whole new thing where people are having to learn, and that's always scary if there's too much that changes at once.
Yes.
So one of the projects that GraphCMS and AE Studio work together on, you mentioned this in your introduction, is BioCentury. And BioCentury moved from a Drupal 6 architecture to GraphCMS along with a couple of other systems. So could you talk a little bit about that process and what went well there, and how did they know that it was time to migrate to a headless setup?
Yeah, so basically everything went well.
That's good to hear.
BioCentury is an amazing client. They know what they're doing. they are up to date with technology. They're using the latest possible technology that they can use, and they really care about their code quality and what they're doing for the future. And one of the reasons that they wanted to move was because their website before was using Drupal and it was kind of rigid. Had they wanted to make it look more modern and create custom components and customize a lot. So what happens when clients or people use CMSs, general CMS, is that it's hard to customize. You need plugins or you need people who know how to build a plugin, and it's hard to find in people. Like, if I'm gonna hire people, it's already hard to find people skilled enough. It's even harder to find someone that knows something specific. So if they wanted to have all the features that they have today using a CMS, it would be extremely hard to find qualified people to work on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hiring is always very difficult, especially in highly technical products. Everyone has their own flavor and everyone has their own tools that they're excited about. So that's absolutely one of the key things. So how in their particular project did they know that it was time to migrate? Were there any sort of, so they wanted more flexibility and they wanted more customization options. How did they know that they'd kind of hit the tipping point?
Well, so that's the good part. When a client is very technical and they understand technology, so it was their decision that they needed a headless CMS, and they knew that they needed it because it was becoming too hard to maintain Drupal with all the customizations that they wanted to make, and to improve performance and everything else, it was getting out of control. So he knew that he needed at that point.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I mean that's a very well aware problem is when you can start to see that you're not able to maintain the content the way that you want to. So with Drupal 7 sunsetting, companies now are in the position where they have to choose whether or not to move to a totally new system or if they want to migrate to a new version of Drupal. So what are some of the considerations they should make to make sure that they make the best decision for their use case?
So I think if you're using Drupal and you have a business and it's surviving and in 5 years you don't see anything changing much, I would say just keep using Drupal. It's a good system. It's easy for editors to add content. It's easy for you to add new pages, content. It works. It's a good system. But if you're more like BioCentury, or if you want to innovate, if you want to customize a lot, the more customization that you want, the more that you want to grow your business, the more you need something that you can customize. Using a Headless CMS is the perfect tool for that because you have complete control over your front end, and the Headless CMS does everything that you need in the back end.
Yeah, awesome. That's exactly what we see a lot with our use cases as well, is like people who have been using a system where they just want to be able to have a very not normal, but like what you think of when you think of kind of an old school website, right? Or not even old school, but just the content doesn't need to change very often. You just need it to work on a web browser. Whereas like companies who are trying to do more things and trying to update content more often and bring in content from different places, there are a lot of times the people that we see who are start looking for headless CMSs. So specifically in the case of BioCentury, what were some of the takeaways in terms of process and the results that came out of their moving to a headless CMS?
The biggest part of moving from one platform to another was migrating all the data. So we built some scripts that read the old database and inserted in the new one. In this case, the Headless CMS.
Mhm.
So that was the thing that was a lot of work. And
Yeah.
after that, everything else was basically making API calls to display content. So basically some front end work.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it wasn't an easy process because the system was really big.
Yeah.
They needed to do a lot of changes, uh, but it was worth it because now they have total flexibility. They have a lot of custom pages with custom logic. They have conferences. They have pages about the coronavirus with custom integrations. So it was totally worth it for them
Yeah.
because they have all this new engaging content now.
Yeah, I think that's one of, especially when you think about their reaction to the coronavirus, because essentially what BioCentury does is making scientific content easily available, correct, from a bunch of different journals. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah, and so the way that they were able to react to the coronavirus and be able to quickly spin up pages about the coronavirus and pull in content to be able to give content to people that really needed it and it was time sensitive, they were able to do that so quickly because of this new flexibility from their setup, which was crazy to see. It was really amazing.
yes, we definitely created the coronavirus as fast as we could, and it was really nice to see they providing information and having people be able to see that information really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, so you would definitely say that moving to this more modular system, this headless CMS plus the front end, was much more beneficial in their use case rather than sticking with Drupal and just updating to the newest version.
Yes, for them it was perfect because they have all these new customized pages now with conferences, for example, and they have integrations with payment platforms, and they basically they have a lot of integrations now and a lot of customized pages that do things beyond what a Drupal static page can do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was totally worth for them. Yes.
That's great to hear. So kind of as a parting thought, what's your final advice for companies who are evaluating migration or upgrading to a new version of a monolith software?
So I would say if you don't see your business changing the next 5 years, if your business is working for you right now, if you can provide content, if you have users, everything is working, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to migrate. But if you want to grow your business, if you want to maybe do a lot of customizations, then maybe it's a really good idea to migrate to Headless CMS and have this flexibility like BioCentury did. And now they are able to integrate with other platforms, do conferences. They have a lot of different integrations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bruno, this was so great to talk to you and get your insights, especially on Drupal and BioCentury. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.